So I call this my wedge ladder. I like to start my practice sessions doing this a lot of times. It's a great way to warm up and also dial in your distances with your wedges along the way. So I'm going to start with a 60-degree wedge, and I'm just going to hit just a few shots, just taking the club back to hip high. Is basically taking my hands to hip high on both sides of the swing. So the backswing is basically going to stop where the club's parallel to the ground. And I'm just going to see how far this shot goes. That's 25, 26 carry. So I like to do this until I've hit 3 or 4 shots pretty solid, and then just kind of take an inventory of how far those carries were. So for those shots that I hit there, pretty much all the carries were 20 to 25 yards. Then I'm going to move up the ladder to what I'd call a 3/4 backswing. Here, I'm basically bringing my hands up to about shoulder height, and to basically this position where the arm's going to be about parallel with the ground, and then same thing on the other side. Carried 72, 77, 75. Then I'm going to do full swing. So in the full swing, just bring the hands up to about head high, full shoulder turn. Pretty full follow. So that's 3 pretty good full lob wedges. I think one was 92, 91, 88 for my carries on those. So that's roughly a 90-yard shot for me. Now with the lob wedge steel, I'm going to go through that same sequence, but I'm going to open my stance just a little bit, try to hit a little bit of a higher shot. So just opening up here, and I'm going to go hip high to hip high. That only went 18. So taking a little bit off the yardage there. Get a couple more of these so I can get sort of an average. 20, 17. I fatted that just a little. So average of those 3 balls is about 18. When I was hitting that shot with a closed face or a square face, it was about 22 to 25. So taking about 5 yards off of that shot when I opened my stance up. Now, the 3/4 swing, I was hitting about 72 before, 72 to 75. So now I'm opening my stance a little bit. 54. So that was 18 yards off. 55. And 57. So the 3 shots that I hit with the lob wedge, 3/4 lob wedge, open stance, average carry, call it 56 yards. That was about 18 yards shorter than I was hitting the 3/4 lob wedge with the stance square. Now I'm going to try to hit a couple of full lob wedges with the stance open. This is not a shot I would hit on the golf course very much, and I'm a little worried to do it here because I'm afraid I'm going to hit the top of the screen. But we'll give it a shot here. I'm going to play this back in my stance just a touch, try to guard against that. 75. 75. 77. So with the square stance, my numbers for the 60 degree were about 25 yards on the quarter shot, about 75 yards on the 3/4 shot, and about 90 yards or so on the full shot. Opened my stance up. The quarter shot was 18 yards, then 56, and then 75. Now I'm just going to go to the 56 degree, and I'm going to go through the exact same sequence. High to hip high with a standard square stance. And these are actually carrying a shorter distance than the 60 degree was, because I just don't have enough club head speed to keep it in the air, but it is rolling out a little bit further. So all these are carrying around 18 yards, but they're rolling out about another 8 or 9 yards on top of that. Now with the 3/4 swing, or the shoulder high to shoulder high swing, I'd expect this to go a little further than I was hitting the lob wedge or the 60 degree wedge. We'll see where those come out here. Yeah, about 92 on that one. 2. And 92. So 3/4 sand wedge is right at 92 yards. Now we're going to take the full swing with the sand. And it's important to probably say here, I'm not taking, this isn't what I would say is a maxed out swing. I'm not swinging as hard as I can, but I'm just, when I say full, I'm just taking it fully to the top of the backswing, but I'm still kind of keeping more of a soft rhythm with this shot. 100. Definitely throw that one out. So all three of those are right around 100 to 102 for my carry. So now the same thing as I did with the 60 degree, we're going to go back through that same sequence, opening the stance up just a little bit and hitting a little bit higher shot. All my 56s are going about the same distance. So whether I open my stance up or hit a 60 degree or hit a 56 degree, all of these little hip high to hip high shots seem to be going around 20 yards. The difference is just how much they roll out. So this one's rolling out more like the 60 degree was, where the square shots were hitting a little bit shorter and then rolling out a little bit more. So that just kind of shows there's different varieties and how you can hit that shot. Now, after I've done that, we're going to go down to the gap. And I would expect that the hip high to hip high shot's probably going to go not very far at all, because again, I'm not getting enough air on it, but it's going to get a lot more rollout. 17 yards, but it rolls out to almost 30. Again, 17 yards rolled out to 30. Sorry, 15 yards rolled out to 30. 18 yards rolls out to 31. 18 yards rolls out to 31. So now moving up to the arm parallel, hands at shoulder height with the 52 degree. I'm guessing that this was going to be somewhere in the 95 to 100 range. That great. 101. 92. It wasn't hit great. 05. Now the full gap wedge. Again, I emphasize with the gap wedge. I mean, with my wedges, I'm really not trying to full send this by any means, but I just am referring to the length of the backswing when I say full. All right, so with the gap wedge, 115, 112, 118, 116. So I'd call that my 115 to 120 shot. Now, for the sake of time, I'm not going to run through the entire grid. We'll leave off the open stance, 3/4 and full 56 and 52-degree shots. As a general rule of thumb, I'm usually can take off about 10 to 15 yards when my stance is open with those more full shots. So I'm going to go ahead and put the numbers on the screen for what I assume that they probably would fall in. And when you look at this, it's good to track the numbers and see how far you're hitting different shots, and also to keep up with where your gaps are. I've got a lot of different options in that 18 to 25 range, but I have no shot that I hit 30 yards or 35 or 40. I've got a huge gap all the way from 25 yards all the way up to 56 with a 3/4 60-degree. And then I also have a pretty big gap from that 55, 56 yard 3/4 60-degree all the way up to 75 yards for a standard 3/4 60-degree. So 30 to 55 yards, and then really 55 or 60 up to about 75 yards, I've got gaps there. You know, that shows me two things. Number one, I need to work on those shots, and that's something that I need to play around with a little bit and see some different ways I can try to hit those numbers. But it shows me, number two, until I figure those out when I'm on the golf course, I probably need to try to work pretty hard to avoid those numbers if I can, because you really don't want to find yourself stuck with a shot where you really don't know how to hit it. There's some things that I can do if I have to, but until I learn how to dial in those numbers, maybe we just need to try to avoid those when on the golf course. Now, one thing that I do with the gap wedge, especially because I have a pretty big gap between how far I hit a gap wedge and how far I hit the pitching wedge, is I am going to go ahead and give this a pretty good rip. This is a shot I'm almost never going to hit on a golf course, but usually I would say it's smarter to take a little bit off a wedge. I just have such a huge gap between my 52-degree carry and my 48 carry that I do like to kind of give myself a number for how far do I hit this one also, just so I can kind of help bridge that gap. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a pretty good rip. Again, not trying to swing out of my shoes, but a little bit more speed conscientious on this one. Just to give myself an idea of how far it can go if I need it. That was 122, didn't hit it great, had pretty good club head speed, but just didn't make great ball contact. As I'm doing this, I mentioned at the start, it's a really good warm-up because I'm also kind of keeping an eye on my club head speed. With my wedges, I'm usually around 90 once I'm fully loosened up. So it's a good way for me to kind of see, okay, I am loose now and sort of ready to get into the rest of my practice. There we go. All right, so 125. That's about what I was looking for. That entire sequence shows me and gives me ideas of how far I'm going to hit each shot so that when I'm on the golf course, I can zero in on those yardages. Another bonus to this that I really like is that I'm also, as a part of my warm-up, loosening myself up and working on different stages of the swing. So in the first shot that I was hitting there, that hip high to hip high shot, I'm really able to kind of zero in on my takeaway. And, is my takeaway going where I want it? Ideally, this is where I would be with my takeaway. I'm guessing when I go back and watch this video that it probably won't be exactly there. I'm guessing I'll be probably in here is where I'm kind of fighting against. So when I'm going through this, it's a chance for me to kind of hit this shot and see how my takeaway is doing. And then as I go into the second shot, the 3/4 shot, I would call it, I can kind of see, okay, am I staying on plane here, or if I'm at the right position here, but then getting in here, that I know I need to work on this section of the swing. So as I'm warming up and loosening my muscles up to practice, I'm also kind of building my way up in the swing from, okay, I'm working on takeaway. Now I'm working on takeaway up to setting the hands, and then I'm working all the way on the full swing. And then eventually I'm working on trying to generate some speed. So I try to make sure I do this at least once a week or so that I'm staying on top of these numbers. They're going to change over time. I did the same drill last week and tried to shoot a video for it, and my distances have changed, about 10 yards or so since that video, just because I've made some changes in my swing. And as you're working on your swing, you're going to need to go back and kind of recalibrate this over time. But eventually, you start to get a pretty good feel for how far you're hitting each shot, so that when you're on the golf course, you've got a number that you can kind of go to that is pretty comfortable. And just doing this on a regular basis, I think, will really help you zero in on your target yards a little bit.